Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are in the third session of our ShipsGo Talks. And since the very beginning, we are just trying to talk about the different topics of the shipping industry in different dimensions. But today, we are going to talk a very important and very hot topic. We are just going to discuss the sustainability in the shipping industry, and specifically, we are going to introduce you carbon offsetting. That's a very critical and important issue because we are all in the same ship, and we are just trying to reduce the CO2 emissions by 2050. And there are many ways to, reach that goal. And we are going to talk about that specifically within the framework of the shipping industry. Today, we have very, distinguished guests. One of them is Duygu. Duygu is the product manager of the Climateware, and the Climateware also our partner. We are doing projects with them in terms of the carbon offsetting. And the other one is Muge. Muge is our sales team leader, and she has been also working on that carbon offsetting issue. And with that two distinguished guests, we are going to talk about the carbon offsetting and the sustainability in shipping industry. Of course, as I said before, in ShipsGo, many times I'm just trying to highlight that issue. Approximately for more than 1 year, we are in the CO2 emissions calculation because that's very critical. The CO2 carbon emission calculation in terms of the container transportation. But after that, we have introduced new projects, new products in terms of the carbon offsetting. And for the sake of what? For the sake of the reducing CO2 emissions. So let's start with Duygu. Can you introduce yourself, Duygu, who you are, and also, of course, your company, Climateware? We know
Mhm,
your company very well, but probably you will explain our,
mhm.
listeners about your company and about yourself.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Okan Hocam. Thank you. Very happy to be here. I'm Duygu from Climateware, as Okan Hocam mentioned. I'm the product manager right now. And I have studied political science and international relations for my bachelor's degree. And then afterwards, I realized that I was very interested in global challenges like climate change. So I pursued a master's degree in international development in Spain, in which I mainly focused on the climate crisis, emission pricing, and etc. And then I came back to Turkey mainly because of COVID, but I realized that I also want to pursue what I want to study on here. So I met with Climateware, and I started working there. Actually, the umbrella of Peerless Ventures 1.5 years ago. So yeah, we've been. Let me share my slides very quickly to talk about Peerless Ventures and Climateware a little bit.
Yes, of course.
Very briefly. Thank you. So Peerless Ventures is basically a network, an ecosystem of forward-thinking companies that seek to create long-term value in the transition towards a low-carbon economy. So what it does is basically identify these forward-thinking companies to build partnerships who want to become leaders in their industry. Because, as you said, the climate crisis has been the agenda. And it's been very critical for companies to become transition into a low carbon economy. And what we do is to identify these companies and build partnerships with them. And then we leverage them with the necessary expertise and resources. And we try to maximize the potential of the innovation they can make. And Climateware is one of these companies under this umbrella. And which builds tools like technological tools that aim to bridge the gap between climate pledges and action. So ShipsGo is actually in partnership with Climateware and Net Zero. And Net Zero is the company that develops these verified emission reduction projects around the world to compensate for the emissions that are inevitably emitted by sectors like shipping, because it's not possible in the near future to go net zero, right? So we inevitably cause some amount of emissions. And what Net Zero does is to develop these projects with companies so that they can compensate for their inevitable emissions. Yeah, I can summarize it like that, I guess.
Okay, thank you very much. So I can truly say that we are working with a very right partner in terms of the carbon offsetting and the sustainability issues. So let's turn to you, Muge, who you are. We know you are from ShipsGo, what you are doing. Can you also briefly introduce yourself?
Yes. Thank you for inviting me here today as well. I have been working at ShipsGo as sales team leader. I'm a part of ShipsGo team since 1.5 years now. And I also studied at the university for my bachelor's international trade and business. And for almost 4 years, I worked as an logistics operation employee at the export company. But then I decided to change some industry, and I found myself at ShipsGo. What I do at ShipsGo is very simple, actually. I just try to introduce our digital tools, our logistics solutions to potential clients, and I'm trying to help them with their adaptation processes to our tools when they decide to use us, in order to make sure that they can benefit at the most possible way. So this is basically who I am. I will talk a little bit about ShipsGo when we are talking about the tools, actually, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we know you very well. So we can start to discuss. The sustainability and the carbon offsetting in shipping industry. But I would like to ask you, Duygu, how prevalent is the shipping industry's greenhouse gas emissions? What actions are taken towards the net zero transition of the industry? What would you say about that as an expert?
Can I get my slides again? Thank you very much. So overall, transportation accounts for around 22 to 28% of global greenhouse gas emissions. These are very vague numbers, as you can say, because it's very difficult to actually calculate these emissions, especially Scope 3 emissions. That's why you can see different numbers in different resources. Well, we can say that it's around 22 to 28% overall transportation. And shipping industry accounts for around 3% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Within these 22%, it's around 10%. The shipping industry's emissions is around 10%. And it's actually not getting any lower. And it should be because there is a net zero pledge by 2050, right? But it's not happening right now because mainly because of globalization, and COVID-19 also didn't affect very positively this situation, because shipping has been a very day-to-day behavior of ours, and also global trade. It's very, very important. So that's why it's not getting any lower. It's getting higher day by day. And there are many, many actions to, lower this amount of emissions. And to get in line with the net zero emission pledge by 2050, there has to be actually a 15% decrease by 2030. But it's from 2022 to 2030. And it hasn't been the case, actually. But there has to be at least a 15% reduction. And until 2050, it has to be 50%. But this is very, very hard to achieve. So what has been...
Sorry, can I ask you a question? Sorry, interrupting, but I really would like to learn about that. Is it really possible to achieve this goal? Is it really possible? What do you think as an expert, because you have been in this business, and what would you say about it?
It is, I can say that it is very difficult, very, very difficult, and it's not going any better. That's why we're seeing these catastrophic natural events right now, right? And there has to be a major shift in fossil fuels towards renewable energy. And there is some progress, especially in the developed countries, especially in the EU, the US maybe. But other than that, I think especially the ones that are the developing countries like Turkey and China, it's particularly harder for them to transition towards a net zero economy. But again, the major emitters are from the EU and the US. So the fact that they're actually making more advancements is better. But in my personal opinion, it's not very possible to become net zero by 2050. That's why there are also policies, decarbonization policies, besides these technological advancements, because we can now see that in the near future, we're not going to be able to be net zero. So we are emitting these greenhouse gases inevitably. And that's why there are regulations. There has been an emission trading system put forward by the EU and other countries. There's energy taxation, carbon taxing. There's investment in carbon capture and storage technologies. And there's also carbon offsetting, which we will be discussing in detail later. But especially in the shipping industry, I can say that it heavily relies on fossil fuels. So to change that, we have to see some transition towards renewable resources. There has been discussion on hydrogen, ammonia, transitioning into these types of fuels. There has to also be new infrastructure investments, construction of zero emission ships, and speed reduction and route optimization technologies and stuff like that. So I can say that these are the things that are under discussion right now.
I have been in the business of shipping for more than 30 years. And if I, look at the, history, especially in last 5 years, the perception of the shipping industry and the shipping companies really changed. 5 years ago or 7 years ago, they were not talking about, that kind of issues, and they didn't care about it, frankly speaking. But now they are aware of that. And then they have just, started to do something. to change the way, maybe, to achieve the goal. So I do agree with you, Duygu. It's not that easy to reach that objective by 2050, but at least we are hopeful for our industry, for the shipping industry, because we are also doing something. You are also doing something. Big companies, as we startups, we are doing something, and the big companies also started to do something. So at least we have just started to do something. So if we keep going on, probably we can do something. We can change. We are hopeful, but it's not that easy. I do agree. Okay, thank you very much. If you don't have any
Right.
more explanation about that topic, and I will turn to Muge. So Muge, as we said before in the beginning, we are also in ShipsGo doing something for the sustainability, CO2 emission calculation, different services. So, what kind of services or what are we doing in ShipsGo for the forwarders, for the cargo owners? Could you please also give us the details? What's happening in ShipsGo about that?
Yeah, of course. Firstly, I would like to remind our audience that as ShipsGo, we have a live container tracking platform, first of all. And we have been in the business since 2016. We started as a startup in Izmir, and now hopefully soon we are opening our offices in Spain, Barcelona. So what our tool does, live container tracking does, that helps users to track all their container shipments from different shipping lines all around the world on a single dashboard, and they're able to be instantly informed about the situation of their shipments on the sea, thanks to our tracking notifications and API integration. To us as ShipsGo, we believe that in the world of trading overseas and international logistics, the most important thing is definitely information, together with some other things such as communication and speed and cost efficiency, of course, but none of them can be achieved without information. This is why our mission statement at ShipsGo is make people happy with the information, as many of our users will know about this. With this mission is in our mind, we also took an interest on the topic of sustainability, and we wanted to raise awareness towards CO2 emission and its effects on the environment. So we decided to take some steps towards this topic, and we wanted to take some steps for a better future. As you already mentioned at the beginning, we started like last year, we started to calculate the CO2 emission data of our users for their shipments they are tracking at ShipsGo container tracking platform. And we started to share this information with them. For the calculation process of this data, we have used a methodology that is based on the methodology of developed by Sea Routes. And this methodology also follows the guidelines and standards that are set by International Maritime Organization and by GLEC. GLEC stands for Global Logistics Emission Council. It's a framework consists of 150 organizations all around the world who are working to reduce emissions and also to improve efficiency all around the supply chains all around the world. Of course, for this calculation, it's actually basically you have a question?
No. Just go ahead.
Okay. So for this calculation, it's actually an estimation of fuel consumption of a specific vessel. And to do this estimation, of course, there are some variables such as distances between ports, technical specifications of vessels, like the type of fuel it uses or the engine type, and also speed, etc. Using these kind of verifications and thanks to the methodology developed and used, we now are able to provide the CO2 emission data to our clients on their tracking dashboard. They are able to see this volume of CO2 that was emitted to the environment when the shipment was on the sea. They are able to see this data on their dashboard, and also they are able to receive it via API. So with the help of this information that is provided by from ShipsGo, they can now start to think about their effects, and also they can move on to taking another step towards actually a better future, a greener future. And for that, we also created a tool called Green Future. It's a digital carbon offsetting tool that we developed thanks to our collaboration with Climateware.
So the methodology is very important in the calculation process. And what we are doing, as you said, we are not doing physically measurement, but we are doing the measurement by using the digital data and, some estimations.
Yes.
And, applying the rules of the International Maritime Organization. And also we are doing another collaboration with the Sea Routes, and we are calculating it as a prediction, but very close to the real CO2 emission. That's the point we are doing in the ShipsGo. So in every voyage, do we give the CO2 emission calculation for our customers for every voyage in the container transportation, Muge?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part.
In every voyage, I mean, in ShipsGo, can we give the that calculation for our clients?
Yeah, definitely. When their shipment first on the sea, as you can see, we are giving this data as the estimated CO2 emission, because we know the route that the vessel is gonna take. We know the vessel names beforehand, so we are able to make this estimation. And when the shipment is finalized, if any of these details are changed, let's say that there has been another transshipment port, so there was actually included another vessel, it doesn't matter, our tool calculates the difference and changes the estimation for the CO2 emission level. So they're able to see this data for all of their shipments on their ShipsGo container tracking dashboard.
Okay, and as Muge said that our motto is make people with the information. So we have a very, operating business intelligence department, and they are also doing some analytics on that data, and just doing some comparisons among the carriers, among the shipments, just to, offer the best route in terms of CO2 for our clients. Thank you very much, Muge. At least we know what ShipsGo doing in CO2 emission calculation. But I will turn to Duygu. Target, we know the targets. 0. We know this not that easy by 2050. But last 5 years, in order to, achieve this goal, we have been hearing new terms, very new terms, in order to achieve that goal. And then one of them is carbon offsetting. Even some people in the industry don't have any idea about what the carbon offsetting. But I would like to ask you, as an expert, how does carbon offsetting work? And what is the nature of collaboration in that carbon offsetting service between Climateware and the ShipsGo? Maybe you can talk about that, Duygu.
Yes, sure, of course. Firstly, thank you, Muge, for the information. It's a very successful tool, as I can see, to calculate the emissions caused by the vessels. So as I said, it is to some degree, it is inevitable for these ships and like in general for all sectors to cause some amount of emissions. And it's not very possible for them to, go net zero by next year. So this is why carbon offsetting is now becoming the agenda, because everybody's like in every sector there is some effort, like they want to do something, but what they do is not enough. So carbon offsetting in that sense is a compensation tool. And to simply put, it's when businesses invest in internationally accredited emission reduction projects around the world. It can be in Africa, it can be in Latin America, or Europe even, to invest in these projects to compensate for the emissions that they cause. So these businesses contributing to the emission reduction projects purchase carbon credits. And these credits can be bought and sold in the voluntary markets, but for them to count, they have to be in the mandatory market, actually, for the EU to count them. And they purchase emission reduction certificates to show that they're actually making an effort to compensate for their inevitable emissions. So these projects can be renewable energy projects, clean water projects, cook stove projects, micromobility projects and stuff like that. So the basic idea is to, invest in a project that is reducing emissions by maybe putting renewable sources in that area, by compensating for like fossil fuels. And you invest in these projects to be able to earn the right to spend your right here to emit some amount of greenhouse gases. So the main logic is that emissions are neutralized when the total emissions released by businesses are equal to the emissions avoided or offset. So the logic of offset is not just to give this money so that you can emit any amount of emissions you'd like. It's that you have to try to reduce some amount of emissions by maybe implementing renewable energy or other types of advancements that I talked to you about before. And after that, the inevitable ones you can try and compensate for through these projects. So I can say that this is what carbon offsetting is.
Someone is, also calling that carbon offsetting as the greenwashing.
Yes.
Do you agree with that term, or is it really a greenwashing? Can we use that word? What would you say about that? Sorry, interrupting you, but I want to
of course.
learn about that.
Of course, it's a very good question because especially reforestation projects are under very scrutinized during discussions because they can be a greenwashing tool if they're not actually done to reduce emissions, because you can't really prove if you're doing this project to reduce emissions, or maybe it was already being under already was going to be established, right? So if you do it right, if you get accredited by these international verifiers, gold standard, verified carbon standard, etc., they are actually very, very important and effective tools, these projects, but you have to do it right. If not, if you don't get them verified, or you're doing it to greenwash, to get the audience to believe that you're doing something, then it can be a greenwashing tool. But as I said, if you do it right, and there are ways to do it right, if you get verified, then it's a very, very effective tool to somehow reduce your emissions.
Can I ask you also another question?
Yes,
Because
yes.
I really interested in that subject, and you are the expert. The verification process, you said that is very important and critical. How difficult is that? Because you are putting some projects in front of the clients for the greenwashing, for the carbon offsetting, but verification is the keyword. How difficult it is? Can everyone do that verification? What are the just very shortly specific points in that verification process?
It's not very easy, and not everyone can do it because it's very expensive, and also it's a very long process. So these projects, the emission reduction process projects that are verified by these accreditors, they usually have a lifetime of 15 years, and the first year is only the verification process. So for a year you have to gather these documents, make feasibility analysis, and you show that you calculate the emissions that were going to be emitted if there was not a project. And you have to show that the project is going to actually reduce those emissions. So this is a whole year process. And after you show these documents to the verifier and you get the accreditation, then you can start implementing the project. And for that, you need another like a year maybe. So it's a very long process and it's not very cheap.
So you, as Climateware, already, verified, already having an accreditation.
Yes, exactly.
That's why we are working with you, because we are not that kind of company, of getting the accreditation, but you know this. That's why we are partnering with you. So as far as I understand, carbon offsetting is not the only one. Okay, I do the emission, so I pay the money. No, that's not it.
Yes,
But
yes.
it's a kind of another contribution, in addition to the other, maybe, actions to reduce the emission. Is it right?
Yes.
Is it right understanding?
Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
cool. Thank you very much for your explanation. So I started to understand. If I listen from an expert, I start to understand. So thank you for your explanation. So I will turn to Muge. So what are we doing in ShipsGo for the offsetting? Because we are working with the Climateware as a partner. So what kind of services we are giving to our clients? What we are trying to do in carbon offsetting in ShipsGo? Can you also give us some explanation about that services?
Yes, of course. As mentioned before, we took the first step for the purpose of sustainability, firstly with the calculation of CO2 emission, and then providing this information to our users at the container tracking platform. And then we wanted to take another step towards this purpose in order to both encourage our users to be more active in the sustainability world, to take some steps towards their, to compensate their emissions to the environment. And we, as you already know by now, we decided to work with Climateware, and we have developed a tool called Green Feature. It's a tool for offsetting, as I already said, carbon offsetting. And it's a tool that our users can directly reach from their dashboard on their container tracking ShipsGo accounts. When they come to this page, they are able to directly go to the offsetting page by clicking on Offset Now button, but they're also able to see if they have already made other offsettings in the history using our platform. They are able to see on the history part. They have some related links that they can easily reach to, like the CO2 methodology of ShipsGo, Analytics 360 CO2 emission page. As Okan, you already mentioned before, that we have a tool called Analytics 360 for our clients to get some insights about their shipments. And on here, we also have a dedicated page to CO2 emission to help our users understand the emission levels they have made during the last 6 years, 6 months, or 1 year with their shipments. Moving on, when they click on Offset Now button, they will be directed to our sustainability green feature platform, where they are able to choose from already verified projects. As Ms. Duygu mentioned, it's really hard to find correct projects to support in order to, when you are thinking about making an offsetting. So we already work for this reason. We are working with Climateware, and we are choosing already verified projects and bringing these projects to our clients. Our clients can get information about these projects if they click on Learn More very easily. They can see the verification company that was doing the verification, and the class which represents like gold standard and verified carbon standard. Verified carbon standard is one of the most widely used carbon offset crediting program, and Gold Standard is an organization that sets standards for climate change activations. So when our users use Green Future tool to make their carbon offsetting, they are already able to trust the projects because they are already verified projects by the necessary organizations. They just simply make a change, choose between them, deciding on the tonnage that they want to offset, and then they can just continue. When they move on, they will come across a page that asks for their details, company details. This is for the certification part. Of course, we will prepare a certificate and share it with our clients, which on this certificate, they will be able to see Gold Standard and Verified Carbon Standard logos, as well as the project name, number of tons for the CO2 that was offset, etc. Our users are also able to make the certification on behalf of their clients if they want. After the final confirmation and the invoicing part for the donation is done, they will receive the certificate and they will be finalizing their carbon offsetting. As you can see, this tool can help our users both to find the correct projects that they can already trust, and also it's a really fast way to actually give back and make a contribution to the environment. So we believe that as ShipsGo, by taking these two simple but big steps, both as ShipsGo, we are caring for our future and our environment, and also we are trying to raise awareness and also encourage our users, because our users consist of logistic companies and cargo owners, export and import companies. So we are bringing a really easy to use tool to them, just to try to encourage them on this goal.
So we are transferring the money for projects. We are only just an intermediary with Climateware. We are collecting the money, but as long as we collect the money, we wire this money to the projects directly for the sake of the greener future. Thank you very much, Muge. Thank you. I think we have some questions. Maybe Semi, this question for Muge. Does ShipsGo update status when containers have one or multiple transload? Also, ShipsGo can integrate with any system as Magaya.
Yes.
This is the question
Hi,
for you.
Oscar. Thanks for the question. Yes, ShipsGo updates the status of the shipment. Not the status actually, because we have 4 statuses: sailing, arrived, discharged, and at the beginning booked. But we do inform our users when there is more than one transshipment port. As long as your containers are full container load, FCL loadings, ShipsGo will inform you on that, and you will also receive the new vessel name, etc., all the details with dates. And yes, ShipsGo can be integrated with almost all softwares. We have providing a very easy to use API integration. For more information, I don't want to talk about API on here. Maybe you can send an email, Oscar, to sales@shipsgo.com, and I will be happy to help you more.
Okay, thank you. So the last words, if you don't have any question, Duygu, the last words. What would you say?
Thank you very much for having me. It was very, very nice to discuss these things with you, and I also learned a lot about ShipsGo. And congratulations for this initiative, and I really, really want to say thank you for having me and collaborating with Climateware for a more sustainable future.
And also, I do thank you, and I do appreciate your contribution and information. Really, I enjoyed a lot, and I learned a lot about that, subject. So thank you very much for your.
Very happy to hear that.
Thank you. And last words, Muge. What would you say?
Thank you as well. It was a nice change for me to talk about this topic besides our clients. Also, I'm thinking that as ShipsGo, we are very proud of our new tools on this field and our collaboration with Climateware. Hope to have even more collaborations in the future.
So keep following us, and thank you very much for everyone. And also, I do appreciate your effort, Muge, and hoping to meet with another ShipsGo Talks. And until then, goodbye to everyone. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.